Hi everybody, it's Adam from Pixel. I'm very happy you're here to join me on this week's episode of Behind the Scenes. One of the most common questions I get are regarding my Cintiq. Does it help improve productivity? In many ways, absolutely yes. It's great for ergonomics, it's good real estate for organizing yourself, but it's a screen. So as far as the actual what's going on the screen itself, the limitation doesn't have as much to do with the device itself, the hardware. It has more to do with the software. And since I use in Photoshop 99% of the time, although this doesn't matter for what we're going to be talking about today, when you're working in Photoshop, there are certain limitations that we do, thankfully, today we'll have a workaround. And it has to do with image references. So what am I talking about? Well, if I take you to the screen over here, if you notice I have a little thumbnail page that I've been working on this week, and I want to bring some image references into this document. So I have a choice of one or two different ways. I can open up a couple of image references like this. There's a couple of pictures I took from the cemetery shoot, and I'll scale them down to a more reasonable size so they're not taking up too much space on my screen. I'll close this for now. I'll move these over here. And I will manually reorganize these, scale them up and down so that they fit on the screen, and then I can use this as my drawing area and work like that. That way I can look at my image references on the left and have my drawing document on the right. However, what if I want to full screen this? What if I want to use all of the real estate in my image? Well, if I hit full screen, my image references disappear because now my main image is overlapping everything else. So the way that we generally work around that, which is something I like doing even less, is copying that image and importing it into our document. So here, we go on layers here, and I'm going to import it into the document and scale it and place it wherever I want. Now when I'm working in full screen, now I have that image reference available, but as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff going on here. As I'm moving around and checking out all these different things, I have to readjust myself all the time, find that folder, move the image references around, hide some, show others. I find this becomes a big nuisance, so I generally don't work this way. I find it a bit of a pain in the butt. So, what do we do? Well, that's a limitation. Well, I'm going to show you what we're going to do today. It's an app, a free app, although you can, of course, donate to the developer, to the app developer, called Pureref. All one word. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. You can go and download it for yourself. Definitely contribute something to the developer if you can, because it's an absolutely amazing app. I'm going to give you a quick run through this app and all of its features, just so you can get yourself up and running and understand how to use shortcuts, how to import images, all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to open the app to start off. Because I've already been using the app, it's going to probably open in the bottom left, okay? Normally, when you get it, it's a window in the middle, and it's probably going to be something like that right in the middle of your screen. You can, of course, scale it down just by going in the corner and scaling it down to the size you want. And if I want to move it into the corner, I just right-click on the window itself and drag it to wherever I want. This is a nice spot for me because I generally like to have my brushes up on the top left, so this allows me to have everything in the image. Right now, it's still visible. But normally, if I click on the Photoshop document, because this is a separate app, it would just be hidden. So what you do is you right-click on it, you go into mode, and you select Always on Top. Now, if I don't have Always on Top selected, if I click on Photoshop, I've just lost my image references. So what you do is you want to click on it, right-click, Always on Top, and now when I click on Photoshop, I can full screen, and it's always there. And if I need to move it, I just have to right-click on it and move it anywhere I want, and I can scale it to any size I want at my own discretion, like that. So now that we've done this, I can get rid of these two. Now, before I mention anything else, you can also play around with the qualities of this screen as well, this actual window. So one of the things I can do is use the keyboard shortcuts Alt 1, 2, or 3. 1 will give me the black that we currently have. 2 is going to give me a white background, and 3, transparent background like this. Oh, and I just noticed that we have this thing underneath. Now, I can't access it because the window's on top. I can remedy that too as well. Notice that if I want to access something in this image, I can't because Pureref is on top of it. So what I can do is right-click on it and go into mode and select transparent to mouse. I'm going to get a little warning dialog when I do that saying, be careful, you can't control any of these images, you can't navigate these images as long as this is deactivated. But right now, if I want, I can go in and draw directly in Photoshop right behind this window if I want to, because it's not responding to it anymore. So if I want to get control of this window back again, I have to, let me just scale this window down, like that. I have to mouse over, not click, but mouse over it, and click on this little button over here, and now I have access to control this once again. Now I'm gonna go Alt-1 because I wanna see the window. Generally, I keep the window visible for what it's worth, and I'm gonna move it into an area I like, and there you go. Now, I wanna import some images. I can import one, I can import many. Do be aware that if you're importing a ton of heavy images, it's gonna weigh down your document quite a bit. It's going to end up becoming a very, very heavy file. So I'm just going to use a few because I'm using more high resolution imagery. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to go in and grab, let's say, 4 images. And I'm just going to click them and drag them right into my document like that. It takes a second for them to load. Remember, they're high resolution images. They have to load a little bit. Now, once this is done, I want to be able to navigate around that. Right now I'm zoomed in to one of the little features. I want to zoom out. So I just have to use the mouse wheel to do that, like this. If I want to move these around, I can select them all and just click them and drag them. Now notice that there's a gray zone here. That's the actual, technically the full work area. And since I'm dragging things around, as I do, that black background is going to readjust itself accordingly, depending on the situation, depending on where I'm placing my images, how I've got them organized. The other way I can zoom in or out is just by holding down the Z key, Z for zebra, okay? If I want to full screen one of these images, I want them to fit them to that particular window, I just double click on an image or hit the space bar. So if I hit the space bar, it'll zoom me in full size or zoom me out like that. Once I'm zoomed in, if I hit the arrow keys left or right, I navigate through all of these images in full screen. They'll all fit full screen, and if I want to exit that, I just hit the space bar and it'll take me back to my full work document. Now with each individual image or all of them together, depending on what you want to do, you can use different keyboard shortcuts to navigate around them. So if I just want to move around the document, I don't actually move any of my photographic references. If I Alt and left click, it'll just zoom me around, it'll just move me around the image. If I actually just left click and drag, you'll see that I've moved this image around. If I want to undo that, Control Z. I can also do that with multiple images. I can just grab them and move them around all together. If I want to zoom in and out, I hold down Alt and Control at the same time. And that'll scale the image up or down individually of all the others. Of course, if I select multiple ones, I can do exactly the same command with all of them, or just these 2 if I want to. If I hold down Shift and Alt, I will flip them either vertically or horizontally, depending on which way I drag. If I hold down Control, I rotate them. And if I hold down Shift at the same time, it'll rotate in 15-degree increments, exactly the same way you would if you're working in Photoshop. And of course, I can do the same thing with all of these, depending on how many I have selected. Let's say I've imported them, but they're all a little bit scattered around. If I select them all and I do Control-Shift-P, they will reorganize themselves and snap into place and kind of do a quick organization. And that pays respect to the actual size of the image as well. So if I have this one and this one's rotated a little bit like that, if I do Control-Shift-P, it's going to organize them based on that layout that I've chosen. Now another feature that you have access to, which I don't see a practical use for, but you can do it. If you have it selected and you hold down Shift, Control, and Alt simultaneously and you click and drag, it changes the opacity of the image. Again, I don't see a purpose for it personally, but for what it's worth. I can hit Control-N, and now I can add a note if I so choose. So I'm adding a note here. If I click on this little top T at the top left of that note that I just added, I can select the color and the brightness, hit OK. I can also play with the opacity. I can hit the bottom one and change the color of the box if I so choose. And I have a choice of playing around with the opacity of that background box as well, and I hit OK when I'm set. If I click outside of it, it becomes an active item, and here if I want to rotate it, or scale it, or do any of those things, I can do exactly that with this node as well. very practical. Now, another feature that I find super handy is I don't necessarily want to have to use all of this image. I just want to, let's say, look at the door or maybe this little design to the side of the door. So if I click on the image first, I have to have it selected. If I hold down C, I can click and drag and it'll crop that area. Here I want to crop the door. Here I want to crop this door. And here I just want to crop this circular design at the top like that. Oops, that one didn't work. Hit C. Oh, hold down C and click and drag, and there you go. Now I select them all, Control-Shift-P, and now they've all reorganized. Now I'm zoomed into the details that I'm interested in. I find that super duper practical. But that's not all, because you might want to use this with your browser as well. So let's open up a browser here. I'm going to bring in a Google page, and I'm going to look up mausoleum. There we go. I already had it written. So mausoleum in London. I'm looking for some cool old mausoleums. And let me see. I like this one. This is cool. I'm going to drag and drop it straight out of the browser, and it automatically downloads it into the document. Like that. I'm going to scale it up a little bit. I like this one. There we go. I can scale it up a little bit. See how quickly that works? There you go. I'm going to do one more just so my document's not too big. Scale it up, select them all, Control-Shift-P, organized. Boom! Super practical. Now, that pretty much gives you a quick run through of the app itself, but what's the major advantage that I find? Why do I use this and not just other ways? For this very reason. I can click on my image and I can full screen it, and I always have my image references sitting there. I absolutely love that. I think that's an absolutely amazing feature. I'm going to click on the image itself. I'm going to do Alt-3 to make it transparent. I personally prefer to keep it active so I can navigate through my images. I click on this image, I hit full screen, I hit spacebar, and I can come in here and I can draw in Photoshop, and I have those image references sitting there whenever I need at my own convenience. Last but not least, it usually prompts you automatically, but if you right click over here, I can go save, and I'm going to do save as or Control-Shift-S, just like Photoshop, and I'll go to my desktop and I'll call this I hit save. It's going to take a minute or two because it's a pretty heavy file. I'll probably cancel this out, but it saves as a Pureref file. And whenever you want it, you just double click on that Pureref file on your desktop or wherever you saved it, and it automatically opens up this document, this project, exactly the way you left it off. So it's absolutely practical. You end up with multiple files depending on the type of project you're working on. If you're using these refs and these refs, I usually like to keep them in smaller groups because as you can see, they can be pretty heavy depending on the situation. Here, I'm gonna close this file. I'm gonna close the window. Now, I can either click on this and you see I have got the refs right there, or I'm just gonna open Pureref. I'm gonna hit Alt-1. And here, I can go right into here. I've got my Pureref file. I open it and it loads the file. Now, normally it's gonna be a lot faster than that because you wouldn't be working with 6,000 pixels wide images, but it's there at your own convenience. So hopefully this is gonna help improve your productivity. It definitely helps me quite a lot, and it's now an essential go-to app for my computer. Remember, I have my private online art mentorship, Lucid Pixel. You can check out all of the information in the description below, as well as my art talks, as well as my behind the scenes, which I'm very punctual with every single Monday, as well as the Brush Sauce Theater Art Contest with myself and Tyler Edlin every month as well. So go and check that out. All of the information is in the description below. Thank you for watching and happy painting, everybody. Take care.